Well, hello and welcome to Come for Legacies with Fay Michelle. Today we have our beautiful guest, Mr. A.J. Williams. I'll let him
Thank you.
introduce himself to us. How are you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank
So
you.
tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Sure. My name is A.J. Williams. My name is Amir, but I write under A.J. Williams. I'm from New York, born and raised. Um, I was a child actor for many years. I started my career as an actor at 2 years old, and I stayed in the business for a number of years. And now I'm a writer, author, screenwriter. I have two books. My first book, released in 2017, is called Flame of Retribution, a novel based on the 2006 police shooting of Sean Bell. And this newest book that I've been promoting just came out a few months ago, called The Bates Theory, A Guide to Overcoming Toxic Mothers and Male Codependency. So I'm keeping busy, always writing, directing, stuff like that.
Okay, so who were you as a child star? Actor?
Well, yeah, I started off doing commercials when I was 2 years old. And then when I was 6, I got my first big break, which was a show some of you may remember called A Different World. That first season of A Different World, Loretta Devine was the dorm director, and I played her son, JT. So I spent the first season doing that. And I did some plays and, some theater. And then when I was about 12, I got a reoccurring role on the soap opera All My Children, playing Jamal Cudahy, the adopted son of Tom and Livia. And so I stayed there a number of years. And, I've done some TV movies. I've even voiced a cartoon. So I got an opportunity to work with a lot of great people over my career and do a lot of great things, travel, stuff like that. But I always wanted to write. And so now I'm working on that. That's the side I'm on now.
Okay. So what's your children's book? Did you say
Say
you
that
did
again?
Did you say you did the children's
No.
book?
I have my first book. My first book is a novel.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't done the children's book yet. I might. I'm always bouncing around genres, trying to challenge myself. But no, I haven't done one yet.
Okay.
Maybe,
Okay. So
maybe
tell me
maybe in the
about
near
Bates
future.
theory, because I think that's really interesting what you were telling me about. I mean, what you were talking about, the mom aspect of it. Share.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, the Bates theory, A Guide to Overcoming Toxic Mothers and Male Codependency. I came up with the concept. Really, what pushed me to write the book was seeing the communication between men and women, and especially now, especially on social media. And it feels like there's a real gap between us and understanding each other. And I felt like, well, if a lot of women could understand where we come from as boys, our origins as boys, maybe they would understand us better. And maybe men would understand themselves better if they could tap into how they actually feel about their mothers and how they actually feel about their upbringings. And a lot of the behavior that a lot of the behavior with men, how they treat women, is rooted in the examples they saw as a child, whether that's directly from their mother, their lack of a father, or both. And so I wanted to get into that, and I talk about a number of different types of toxic mothers in there, and different scenarios, and even how the mother can treat her son in a toxic manner as an older man. How many men have an unhealthy or unnatural relationship with their mother that interferes in their relationships, their romantic relationships, interferes in their finances. And so I wanted to tackle all of that. And that's what the book's about.
Okay, I thought that was really, really interesting to have sons myself, older, and I always struggle with that. People calling them mama's boys, or and especially fathers. I don't want a
Well, I
mama's
mean,
boy, and then the transitioning. Go
yeah, I
ahead.
want to say that I'm not advocating that a man doesn't have a close relationship with their mother. That it's good to have a close relationship with your mom if the relationship is a healthy one and if the relationship is a balanced one. And that's what I hope to examine in the book, showing the difference between healthy relationships and unhealthy ones. And usually, if there's an unhealthy adult relationship, then that means that major damage was probably done as a child, which the man may not be aware of. And so a lot of the negative behaviors that he's doing, he might not know that they're rooted in his childhood. And so it's a wake-up call for both sides. It's a wake-up call for men, and it's a wake-up call for mothers who are raising sons, that some of the behaviors they're doing may be harmful and detrimental to their sons. And hopefully our next generation of boys will be stronger and emotionally intelligent, healthy, and have good, solid relationships. But I'm in no way advocating not having a good relationship with mom. That's a great thing if you have it and it's healthy and it's productive, and that's great. That's what you should have. But the reality is that for many men, that relationship is unhealthy, and it interferes with them developing fully as they should as a man. So that's what we want to attack.
Yes. Gentleman was talking about his toxic relationship with his mother, and it led to why he doesn't date African American women. When I heard your subtitle or whatever you're talking about, I was like, oh man, this is a great book to discuss. Because
Thank you.
It is very, very poignant to the situation that's going on right now. Do you have the book with you?
Okay, so this is the first version of the book looks like this. The new one has a different cover, but okay, so here's the chapters, the table of contents. Introduction: Is your mother toxic? Chapter 1: Me and You Against the World, which is something that many mothers say when sons are coming up. More of a concept than an actual sentence. The idea that you and your mother are bonded together, which is not a bad thing, but how she says it and in the context that she says it, based on whether she has a man or not, whether she's mentally stable or not, can make that sentence and that concept more harmful than positive. So we get into that. The idea that no one can love you like your mother, the idea that the son is more like her man than her son, and an unnatural, unhealthy bond ensues, right? So chapter 2, just like your daddy. A lot of people heard that, right? Especially if the dad is not there, used in a negative manner. Chapter 3, love and violence. This is where we get into the juxtaposition between having violence in the home from somebody that you love, and having that be a regular part of you being brought up and your raising. So we talk about that. Chapter 4, perpetually single, what it looks like, some of the negative effects when a mother is raising her son and she stays single. Chapter 5, the new man, some of the negative effects when she brings a new man into the home. Chapter 6, leaving the nest, when the son finally grows up and it's time for him to leave, what that looks like. Chapter 7, a woman of your own, a new phase in your life. Now you get your own woman. Now there's a clash between her and mom, right? If she's unhealthy, so we examine that, right? Chapter 8, bastions of bitterness. Chapter 9, slaying your dragon. And chapter 10, the final chapter, are you a toxic mother? So that's one where the mothers can look at some of the things in there and see if they're doing some of these toxic behaviors, and places where they might need to make adjustments. Sons can set some boundaries if things are out of whack. So that's the book.
That's awesome. Now hold it up again so I can see the cover real good.
Yeah. Now, like I said, the cover is different. The new cover, it has a cracked cup which says #1 mom, and it's cracked. So
yes.
So if you go on Amazon, that's the cover that you'll see. But the content is the same. The chapters are the same. It has a little bit of a blurb about me as the author and stuff like that. But all the content is the same. So,
did you self-publish?
Yes, I did. This is my second book that I've self-published. Yeah.
Okay. I really love the subtopics and the chapters and whatnot. I think there's a little bit of us all in every one of them, so we could really benefit.
You brought up something interesting when you were talking about the young man that said he wouldn't date Black women anymore, which is, of course, unfortunate. But I think it speaks to that there are certain issues in our community that are unique to our situation for Black men and Black women. And that directly ties into how we're raised. And if we're ever going to get to a new level where we're dealing with each other better, our dating life is better, all of that stuff, then we have to be real about some of those things that we've all been raised with that just don't work anymore. You know, I think there's a lot of ideas and concepts that have become a part of our culture that may have had some effectiveness 100 years ago or 60 or 70 years ago, but that we may need to update, we may need to re-examine, and some things we need to just straight up get rid of. And but unless we can be honest about that, especially when it comes to mothers, well, it goes double. It goes for boys, because boys don't really like to talk about their mothers. Men don't, you know, and I talk about that, that inability to confront a mother that is harmful or detrimental to them. We have something inside us that prevents most of us from doing that. And so how can we ever get better if we're afraid to tackle that part of our lives, which plays such a big part in who we are and how we see the world and how we see women? And then for mothers, they're of course very sensitive about how they raise their children and, you know, what they do inside their homes and that kind of thing. So if we're going to get to the next level, we have to toughen up and we have to have these conversations, and we have to be real with ourselves and be real with each other if we're ever going to change things. So that's what I'm hoping to do, my small part, by putting this book out, and hopefully, you know, the community, and not just our community, but everybody embraces it. And, you know, I can have a small hand in making things better. That's my hope.
Now, can I ask you a personal question? How was your
Sure.
relationship with your mom?
Good question. Well, I talk about that in the book. You know, right now, we're not speaking right now, and we're not speaking because of the book, but hopefully that'll change. You know, I like, my mom was a great mom. You know, she was a Broadway actress, and, you know, I experienced a lot of great things in my career. She was very loving. She was very, you know, upbuilding. I was never berated or anything like that, which I talk about in other parts of the book. But there were certain things, certain aspects of my childhood, like I never knew my real father. He disappeared. You know, he had no hand in bringing me up. And my stepfather, who stepped in, came from an extremely abusive home. So I felt the ramifications of that. So in talking about that and, you know, certain other things, you know, I guess it kind of rubs it the wrong way that I would talk about those things. And but you know, it's part of what I mean when I say that we have to get real. Part of the reason why men can't heal is because, you know, in today's climate, we hear that men should go to therapy, and I think that we should. But that's pretty hard to do in the Black community when a large part of therapy is talking about what goes on in your house. And we've been trained, most of us have been trained, that we don't talk about what goes on in our house. So you can see the problem there, right? You can see the dilemma. And then if you manage to break that barrier, then the second part of that is, okay, we got to bring mom in. So, so you can see how it's going to be hard for men who've gone through toxic things, abuse, whatever, in their home to get to the next level, because there's this block there, right? There's this idea that we don't talk about what goes on. The more harmful, the more we don't talk about it. And of course, that's unhealthy, because we're carrying residual energy from whatever we went through and bringing that into our adulthood, bringing that into our romantic relationships. A lot of times our finances are affected, our view of ourselves, self-esteem. A whole bunch of things are tied into how we were raised. So how are we going to get better if we're afraid to talk about that? How, as a mother, are you going to have a better relationship with your child if you can't even confront things that you did or things that they experienced and allow them to tell you how they felt? You know, it's tough, but it has to be done if we're going to get to a healthier version of our relationship. We all have to grow up, you know, and that's a hard part of our community. I have to say, sadly, that a lot of us just don't want to touch that stuff, you know. But I think things are changing. I think the time that we're in, especially with social media, a lot of more men are starting to speak out, talk about their feelings, talk about their childhoods, talk about their parents. And the more that we do that, the more that women, I believe, will have greater insight into their men, what actually shapes them, what shapes their viewpoint, what shapes their value system, their view of women, their treatment of women. And then you'll have a better shot at getting the results you want to get out of your man. So that's, you know, again, that's my hope.
That, you know, it's powerful all the way around. Um, I think that for moms, I'm a mom,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that there is a line which no one talks about. Um, Especially when you're raising in the African American community and you're raising young Black men. And sometimes we're alone, sometimes we're not, sometimes you're married, you're and whatnot. But even more so, we're feeling the pressure to save our children. And I think that there's a line when you get them across a certain point in time, we don't know when to stop. And it's that concept of cutting the apron strings and whatnot. And
Yeah.
and I'm that mom. I was like, I don't care what age they are, I'm going after my baby. And I'm like, my son had a flat tire while he was in college, and I took our car, and he lived in Southern California, and I hitched my Hummer up and put a trailer on the back and took him a new car or something just to get that. I took the other
Like,
car down there and brought the other one back because I felt like, my husband was like, he can do that. I was like, nah, he can't do it. I'm going to make sure, because I don't want him to miss not one day of school. I don't want to give him any excuses, And he's a grown man, been through the military and the whole thing. And so, yes, there's a time when.
Like I said, I don't want you to feel like, I don't want women to feel like, and mothers to feel like, they can't be close to their sons or they can't do things for their sons. A big part of what I talk about in the book is mom herself. The key is everything has a different connotation if the person is unhealthy, right? So two moms could be doing the same thing, but if one is mentally ill, then the way she does it is going to be harmful. If one is emotionally unhealthy, then the way she does it is going to be harmful. If one is lonely, if one is, it's got trauma from the past, like abusive relationships, rapes, things like that, very serious stuff that happens to women many times in their childhood, and unfortunately much in our community. If she doesn't deal with those things, and then she takes on the monumental task of raising a child, especially raising a male child, then there's going to be real problems. So the key is not how close you are, but it's how are you mentally and emotionally healthy. And I think another part of the difficult conversation is women taking on that task of raising children before they are emotionally or mentally healthy, and the child unfortunately feels the residual effects of that. And so that's of course another difficult conversation, because many mothers have expressed they didn't plan on raising children by themselves and things like that, but a lot of times it's directly related to certain choices that they made, and a lot of women are sensitive about that, whether it's the man that they choose, whether it's the lifestyle, whatever. But all of these things are connected. So there's nothing wrong with being close with your son. There's nothing wrong with wanting to help him, but it's how you help him. It's the nature of your relationship. Is how emotionally and balanced are you? Does your adult son, have you given your adult son the tools emotionally, financially, spiritually, mentally to exist without you? See, these are the questions we need to start to ask. So, if those things are all checked off, then having a close relationship is great. But if they're not checked off, then that means the relationship is symbiotic, where neither one of you have really grown up, but you depend on each other in an unhealthy manner. And that's what we want to get away from, because today's women, when they're talking about dating men, they express the effects of dealing with the man that's in that situation, and how mom interferes, how he's not really grown up in these areas because mom always did this, or because she didn't do this, because there was no man present, or the type of man that was present. Like, there's so many factors, right? So we need to talk about all those factors if we want the next generation of boys to be the kind of men that we're proud of, the kind of men that treat women the right way and view women and value women the right way. That's not going to happen out of thin air. That's not going to happen just because you want it to happen. It has to happen with training. It has to happen with the right things, the right people in place, the right mental in place, the right emotional state in place. And if we keep ignoring that, the men that we see are going to be worse and worse. That's just the reality. And so we have to get past this idea of being super sensitive about raising children and talk about the issues, that what it takes. Because quite frankly, male children are looked at differently than female children. It's almost as if we don't think about how they can be hurt. We don't think about how inexperienced they are. We don't think about we just assume that they're going to be okay, and a lot of times they're not. And a lot of the men that are walking around, grown men, are not okay. And the reason is because we haven't treated them as children. They haven't been allowed to grow up properly as children. We've put adult emotional burdens on them. Sometimes we put adult financial burdens on them. And that destroys their ability to be able to grow properly and shed childish behaviors properly in a timely manner. And they become old big children. They become big children because their development has been arrested, So if we want to change that, we gotta be willing to talk about all the stuff. We gotta put all that stuff on the table, and we gotta be willing to change some things that are clearly not working. And so that's what I'm about. But it's good if you have a strong relationship with your son. Just don't interfere in his finances and don't interfere in his relationship.
I've done it all. I've done it all. I'm sorry. I'm dragging you across to get that house. I want you to get your first car. Oh man. I've done it all. It's not, well, okay. I bring it up because I say there's a thin line, and no matter what state of mind that you're in, we could all benefit from these books from your book, because it's how it's going to be perceived. No matter how I feel about it, it depends on how the child or the son or the adult son or whatever, how they're perceiving it. And so I can just be a nag when I'm saying, do this, I can be looked at as a nag. I can be looked at, oh, I love you, mom. I could be looked at as a doting mom. I can be looked at as someone that's just too domineering, and I've heard it all. So, but knowing when to cut that off. And I understand your whole point about being mentally stable and whatnot before you even get into these situations, before you can even be an effective parent. But I also agree. I think that your book lends itself to questioning even those of us who probably think that we've done a great job, and maybe not so much, because the telltale signs is later on, maybe they're not coming around so much. Maybe around, they don't stay as long as they would have, and things like that. There's a lot of things that we don't cover, being young mothers and so I just think that it has a lot to offer, even though not everybody is perhaps in that space of I think we all have some mental illnesses or some mental things challenges that we can work through, And I just hear where it could work both ways, just parenting skills. And we don't even want to get into mothers and daughters. You could write book 2 on that. You could definitely write about that one,
I've had female friends say, you need to do us next.
Yes, them say, absolutely.
Next. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll do some interviews and see how I can write that. But I mean, I think that one of the reasons I was able to do it is because I'm a man who was once a boy, and that perspective, like I said, there's not a lot of those out there. There are women who are willing to write about their relationships with their moms, but boys have a different dynamic, and so we don't get to hear that viewpoint as much, because I think many boys feel guilty. They feel guilty if they start talking about mom. It's like, she did so much for me. She made so many sacrifices. How could I talk about her? But like I've said in other rooms, it's re-examining a relationship. If you have a business, a relationship, a job, a romantic relationship, every relationship needs to be reevaluated to see if it's growing, to see if it's healthy, to see if it's giving you what you need. The mom relationship is no different. And I think if we ignore it in that manner, then we get in a space where it is unhealthy. You know what I mean? And like you said something very important and something that I believe is true. It's not about what you think you're doing. It's about what the person receiving it felt, right? So
Mm.
we don't get to tell people what they feel. We know what we meant to do. We know what we thought we were doing, but we can't tell the person receiving the energy how to feel about it. And that's a
Yeah.
mistake that I think many mothers make. And this is what I
Yes.
was trying to do, and you don't know what was going on. And it's like, yeah, but I was a child though. So you might have had in your mind what you were trying to do or what you wanted to see happen. But as a child, you're talking 5, 6, 7 years old, 10, 12. You don't know how that's being received. So the number one thing I say to moms is you got to listen. And you got to be willing to listen, and you got to open up a space that's okay for your children to tell you what they felt. It doesn't have to be done in a disrespectful manner, and you don't have to feel attacked by it if you've done the kind of work that has you in the right space. That, like, I'm prepared to hear what my children have to say, because you can't dictate what they're going to say. You can't dictate how they feel. You have to be ready for whatever they say, because when they were experiencing whatever they were experiencing, they were a child. And so even if they received it totally wrong, that's how they received it. So your main concern shouldn't be how I feel as a parent being attacked, but your main concern should be, how does my child feel? How are they feeling when XYZ happened to them? And I think the more that mothers get in that space, their relationships will undoubtedly be healthier, be stronger, and more productive. And then by default, men will treat women better because their feelings about women will be better. I mean, there's one of the things that I brought up in one of my rooms, and I said, how can a man have no problem harming a woman or have a low opinion of women if he came from a loving, productive home, a loving, productive, supportive mother? Doesn't make a lot of sense. What's more likely is that he came from a home where the opposite was true, where there were some things that were going on in there that weren't healthy. And so when he got his chance to treat a woman a certain way, he treated her badly, because this is what he's got in his mind about his feeling about women, and there are other sources too, of course, where boys get their ideas about women. But especially if you're a single mother and you're the primary influence in your son's life, you got to know that he's getting his clue about women from you. So that's something to keep in mind, and that's something to acknowledge, if you're raising sons.
Yes. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Oh, wow. Well, we can go on and on. So, AJ, we
Oh, we
just
definitely
gonna
can.
have to cut it. We can
No,
go
I
on
thank
and
you
on
for
about
having me.
this one.
Um,
And every time
I
I hear
want
you
you to.
speak,
I
my
definitely want
heart
to hear.
just sinks a little bit more. You see me coming into the camera, trying to hear everything. But yeah,
I really want to hear your personal thoughts on the book. So let me know when you read it, and you know, get back to me, and I'll definitely come
oh,
on
yeah,
again if
absolutely.
you're
You're going to
having
send me a
me,
book,
and
right?
we could talk more about it. Yeah, yeah, sure.
I
So
said,
just inbox me, and let me know where to send it. Yeah, I'd love to come back and talk with you, and see and see what you thought of it.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Probably going to break me down, but yeah.
It's
Break
okay.
me.
You got
Oh,
this.
I'm sorry now, I
You
know.
got this.
So, well, I thank you so much for being on the show today, and I definitely have to have you come back, and I welcome you and to further this conversation, because I think that it is imperative. Really, it is
Thank you
so
so
needed,
much.
and I'm looking forward to how we can get past perhaps the next generation. Maybe there's not
Yeah,
so much we can do currently other than work on ourselves, but maybe we can help better prepare moms and dads for the next generation of coming. So definitely.
that's my hope, and I think that we can do stuff with each other. There's if you're alive, there's always room for improvement. So I don't think we're past the point of that. I think we can always do more and be better in
Absolutely.
relationships and families and all that stuff. So yeah, let's keep going, man. I'd love to come back, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here today, and we will have you back.